Thanks, Philip. Good morning. Good morning. All right. So as we foreshadowed a little bit, this is a movie. I don't know if everybody has seen the movie Cool Hand Luke. And Strother Martin says, what we have here is a failure to communicate. And he gets locked in a box in the hot sun for all day. So it's important to know how to communicate. And in the IT business, I would say this has been kind of a passion of mine because I see so many bad presentations on any given day. Bad. People have the opportunity to really make a difference, and they just fumble the ball, and it rolls down the hill, and it's gone. You know, you've got very little time with leaders. Leaders can't spend time with every person. When you get an opportunity to speak to your peers, your leaders, you got to make the best use of it. And I'm going to talk about a couple of techniques. These are things you don't use them all at once, but they're tools in your toolbox. And always remember that opportunity is your opportunity. You could have the best idea in the world, and if you don't communicate it, it's nothing. It doesn't mean anything to anybody. Okay, so I've got a bunch of words up here, and some of these things you may know, some of them you may not, some of them you may go, never heard that. And would you do all of these in every time you speak? No. But you've got to be thinking about your audience and what you have. So I'm going to go through these one by one. I'll go do a couple examples. So the first one is always lead with the why. Why are you there? Always keep that in mind before you start talking. Why are you there? It's not to barf up a bunch of stuff onto your poor audience. There's something you want, some outcome. I am here because I want this, or here's why we're doing this. So always think about getting that up front, because that engages the audience and makes them think about, oh, that's why we're here. That's why Bret's standing up there. Why is he? Why are we here? So that's a super important one. One that I like to always mention, I think everybody's heard of Guy Kawasaki. Anybody heard of Guy Kawasaki? Okay. So the short version of what Guy Kawasaki says is, make your slides more visual. Do not make a wall of words. So here's an example. This is typical, and this is from How to Make a Good Presentation, which is very funny to me. So Guy Kawasaki would say this is terrible because people are going to be trying to read it. They're not listening now. They're reading, and you've lost them. So you want to think about it. He would say use no smaller than a 24-point font. And what do most engineers do if you tell them I only get 3 slides? What do? We got 6-point font, man. I'm getting everything, my whole life story put in there. So it's important to think about that. Pictures, stories, leave people with a visual. You don't need to write down everything you're going to say. A lot of people will put, like I said, tons of words and then start to read it to the audience, which immediately puts them to sleep. So always think about a visual that represents your concept. That's what people are going to leave the room with. You have a story, you have a picture, and that's where you go. So that's Guy Kawasaki. Weasel words. So these are, when you speak to leaders, they want you to express confidence in your ideas. You can't say things like, well, I believe that, or I heard that. Someone told me. There's all these things where people couch their statement so that if they're wrong, they can, that's because that's what Dave told me yesterday. So always just be confident. Don't soft pedal your message. Make sure that you speak to it in decisive, concrete terms. Active voice, that kind of thing. So it's important to really think about the words you use. Be confident, because particularly with leadership groups, they're gonna know if you're not confident in your message, and then they're not gonna be confident in what you're saying, and then it kind of spirals down. And it particularly, I always, and I'll say this in another one too, but when you get, there's blood in the water, and if you've ever spoken to a group of leaders, you realize once you start down that veil, it's over, man. They're just on you. One person asks a question, and you kind of stumble around. The next person comes, you realize, okay, I'm chum. I'm done. So be careful there. And if you don't know the answer, it's okay, but don't tiptoe around it. But don't just go, I think, it might be that we could do this. Be confident. 2 questions deep. So the corollary to this one is be ready for questions. Because again, you have your chance in front of this leadership team. You don't get hundreds of these, you get a couple of them. And when you speak, and somebody asks a question and you don't know, and somebody asks a question, you don't know, I'll get back to you. What happens? They're going to be like, okay, I'm not really sure why they're here. So it doesn't mean you have to know everything, but anticipate it. Know who your audience is. Know the types of questions that they're going to ask. Okay, it's super important to anticipate questions. Don't assume everybody's just going to get what you said, and they're not going to come back with any form of questions. So I like 2 questions deep. Think about on each key topic. If you've got the CFO there, what are they going to ask? Financial questions. How do you know that's the right cost? How did you figure that out? If you have an engineering person there, they're going to go, well, is that data model really going to work? Because we have this problem and that problem. You know what they're going to come at you with. Does it align up with the company's strategy? All those types of things. Have you thought about resources? So just go through and challenge yourself. And if you can't come up with it, get somebody else to challenge you. Show them your slides. You say, just ask away. Just ask away. Not somebody who totally knows your problem. Get somebody who doesn't know your problem. So that's a key one. Time box the message. So this is probably one that drives me nuts because somebody will have a certain amount of time and they'll come in, and I don't care what the time slot is, you make it up, 30 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes. And I've had vendors come in and they have 20 minutes and I look up and they have 32 slides. And I'm like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. We're not gonna get there. So I'll tell a couple stories here. The first one really is gonna date me, but I used to work for a guy who really got frustrated with long presentations, and yes, this is the day where we actually had little transparencies and we put them on the projector. But I had, on one occasion, I could tell he'd gone through a bunch of, and he was getting frustrated. He says, flip your deck over. I want you to go from the back. I'm going to start with questions and go backwards. And you go, well, gosh, what happened to my big reveal? I got the big reveal at the end. No. And you'll find a couple things happen there. First off is sometimes, you're going to say, I need 8 people and $10 million. And the CIO goes, okay, sounds good. I know you got a good plan. All right, next. And you're going, well, wait, what about my whole tap dance? I don't get to do that. So it's always important. The other thing I tell people is, remember, stuff happens. I mean, this is a great example. Let's just say we were now, I had 10 minutes to go. I can't just talk for a half hour because that's what Doug told me I had. I realized everybody's going to leave at 10 o'clock. So always know how to shrink your message to fit the time slot. And the example I always give is you get out of your car in the parking lot. There's Pam Cahaley, the CEO of Blue Cross Blue Shield. She goes, hey, Philip, what's going on with that data stuff? Philip cannot do this. I'll show you what he cannot do. He cannot do this. First the earth cooled, then the dinosaurs came. And then we discovered oil. Okay, that's it. I'm at the elevator. Thanks. Great to see you, though. Great to see you. Someday, tell me about that data thing. So always remember what is the key message. And you're not going to give them the whole story. You want to tell a leader how much so they go, I want to hear more about that. Call my admin, set some time, and let's talk. It's not about telling them the whole story of how the earth got to where it is today. It's really just giving that piece of interest. So super important on the time boxing the message. And I kind of hinted at it, but I guarantee you're going to go into a meeting, they've got these all-day senior staff meetings. What happens every time? Anybody? What happens at every one of those meetings? They run over. So you think you're 2:15 to 2:30. They go, yeah, Brett, gosh, we're really behind. First off, you're not going to start till 3:30 and you get 5 minutes. And you can't go, well, I can't fit my story in 5 minutes. It's a good story. It's a great story. So you got to always remember, how do you break down your message into bite-sized pieces so that you can make it longer? Because sometimes you get more time. Sometimes, most of you get less time. So always think of time boxing your message and have it in your head, because sometimes it's not going to be, okay, 4 weeks from now, we want you to do an elevator speech to the CEO. No, it's going to be get on the elevator and you're like, crap, what do I want to tell her? You know, because I'll tell you, the CEO at Bluegrass, she'll ask, and she knows enough stuff. She'll ask you if you go, well, gosh, what did I do this weekend? No, tell me about your project. So, very important. Bluff. So, anybody know what bluff is? Okay, bottom line up front. Again, no one wants the big reveal. They don't want to have this buildup. You're not doing a magic trick. And here's the rabbit. After this big buildup, you want to tell everybody right up front what's the bottom line. That's why you say you start with, I need $10 million and 8 people. Now, what happens in the room? Either somebody may say, okay, good, you're good. Or people go, wait, what? That's crazy. What are we getting for 10 million? Okay, now everybody's awake. They're leaning in, and now you say, oh, good, I'm going to tell you now. Put the pitchforks down, I'm going to tell you. Right? So, bottom line up front. This is the hardest thing for people. And I gave you my sad story that I remember what transparencies are. But I've done that with, particularly with vendors who want to start with, here's our company, we're in 26 states, and here's all the logos of companies we work for, and you're like, oh my God, you know, can we just, what are we here for today? So I've done that. I said, we're going to the back and go back. I've done it to them. And it really throws people off their game, but it also makes them realize time is important, and I better know what I'm talking about. I can't just bluff my way through it. Bluff my way through it. But anyways, bottom line up front. Probably one of the more important things up here. Time box and bluff are probably my two most favorite things. Know your ask. What do you want? What do you want? And people you'll get to the end, you'll go, okay, well, that was super interesting, but what do you want? Well, I just wanted to tell you about this big problem. Okay, what do you want? And so many people don't know what it is they want. You know, what is it that if you go to the CEO and say, you tell them the story and they go, okay, what do you want me to do? What do you need? Do you need money? Do you need people? Do you want just me to hug you because you're having a bad day? What is it? So always know what your ask is. Know what it is you want from people, right? You got to know it, because you see sometimes, like you'll see this. This is also a chart. And you throw this up, and I go, well, wow, this looks like this is super important. I got to figure this out. But you don't. So you have to know. You have to know what is it you're talking about here. Okay. Let's see where I leave off here. Circle the wagons. So this is one I picked up along the way doing this talk, and this is also a very interesting topic. It's probably one of the more subtle things when you speak to leaders. If you got a room of, 10 executives, do they all like you? No. Do they all support what you're doing? No. Do you have critics in the room? Yes. And do you probably know who's going to ask you the crappy questions? You sure do. You know where they're coming. When you see their hand go up, you get that feeling in the pit of your stomach like, here we go. Remember, we're talking about blood in the water? This is the first shark coming in. So what's a technique to prepare for that? A technique is to meet with some of those executives before your presentation and say, hey, look, here's what I'm going to talk about. And they may barf all over it. That's okay. They may go, Bret, that's the stupidest idea I've ever seen in my whole life. You go, okay, I'll be ready for that one. I know they're coming for me. They're coming for me. You may learn something that they say, the only way that would really work is if you involve this group over here. Oh, think of that. Good idea. And so you can prepare for those, kind of the negative vibes, right? You may find some people who are going to be your ally in that meeting. That's good too, because sometimes somebody goes, hey, that's great. I'd heard about this, but I didn't really understand it. I really appreciate it. Are you going to be able to meet with all of them? Most likely, no. But you have to know kind of who are you most afraid of? Who do you know the least about? Those are the ones, because it does two things. It helps you prepare. They get to know you a little better. You're not just a, talking head up in the front of the room. So that way when you go in the meeting, you already know where the landmines are. And maybe where's a friend? you know. So it can really help, you know, to not get into that feeding frenzy. And that's a real thing, you know, when the executives kind of start to, you know, go down this spiral, and, you know, and you realize we're going in, we're going to auger in on this thing. I can't undo it. So it's a way to kind of modulate that so that you don't just crash and burn, right? It's a very, it's probably one of the hardest techniques because it takes a lot of courage, a lot of fortitude. You've got to, you know, put yourself out there a little bit because they may just, like I said, people, they just may not really like your idea. But you can't just ignore that, because if you go in without knowing that, if they still aren't going to like your idea, you're just going to look like you'll just get blindsided. And then what happens? You start to get weasel words, and you start, you know, falling all over yourself and melt down. So it's important. It's important to know who your audience is, and not just by their title. What is it that they're thinking about? What's going on with them, so that you can tailor your message to land with a larger group. Because if you get a couple people talking in a positive way, the opposite happens in these meetings. And it's everybody's kind of bringing everyone up. Because there is, you know, it's a pack. You know, like it or not, it's a pack. And they all have different roles, different responsibilities. But this is a key one, because it really gets you out there to really understand what's going on in the business. Okay, so what? Who cares? So that's this one again. Oops, there it is. You know, and when you first ask this of people, they kind of get their feelings hurt. Who cares? So what? And it's like, what is the message here? What do you want me to walk out going? That is so important. So, you know, so the so what and who cares, you should always be asking that. Particularly when somebody plops up this blob of charts and data, what is in there that you want me to know? I believe it. You've got a database behind this thing. But tell me what you want me to take away. And I may just say, okay, I'll stipulate that point. You don't need to prove it. I'm on board. And you got to figure out who really cares about the outcome. So what do you show me? Who cares about that? It's not, you know, who cares about you, but who cares about this problem? You know, who's going to go yay if we fix it tomorrow, right? And it's super important. I mean, the data world is fraught with this, you know. Everybody says, well, we want good data. Well, who cares? You know, what is it? What are we going to solve? So when you look at these techniques, like I said, you're not going to use them every time, everywhere, in every presentation. But each one of these things can help you get to a much better place from communication standpoint. None of these are easy. I make it sound like, oh, you just do this. This is, you know, it took me a long time to get to the point where I kind of was able to internalize these things and think about it and self-criticize my own presentation. But it's super important as you move up in leadership to be able to communicate. Communication is really your only way of changing and influencing your organization. I think Doug said it, you know, and I've supported this about, you know, leadership is really not about how many people are below you on the org chart. It's about your sphere of influence. You know, what can your boss tell you to go do and know that you can go across the organization and make that happen? It's not about your little army. You're going to march around, go get something done. No, it's about what are your relationships? How well do you communicate? Can they trust you to go out there and deliver a message and you know, make that change? So these are techniques to help grow your communication skills. Communication skills mean your influence grows, that you're called upon more frequently, and to, you know, about solutions to problems. And then what happens? Your career develops, you get promoted, and bada boom, bada bing. You know, so it's very much a key set of tools. And I say I'm passionate about it because I see so many, you know, bad presentations and people who really waste an opportunity that they had. And sometimes it's really hard to get it back once you know, if you blow it. I don't want to put pressure and stress everybody out, but you've got tools to make it go. So anyways, that's it. That's my presentation on communications. I do want to ask, does anybody at least recognize, do you guys recognize at least, other than Bluff, do you recognize something else on this? Did you know about it before? Okay. Some are new. Any new ideas? Any things you hadn't thought of before? Okay. I'd like an example of where you think a presentation went badly and what happened. Nope, you've never had a presentation go bad? Nobody?
Circle the wagons is one that comes to my mind. I had a list of metrics that I thought were important that were only important to me.
Yeah.
Because I didn't check and find out what metrics were important with the people I was presenting to. And it wasn't my leadership team, it was actually people in other business units, but I didn't do the homework that I should have done up front.
Right, that's good.
I ditto that, circle the wagons.
Yeah.
Know what you're walking into.
Yeah.
Make sure that you're getting on point.
Right. Yeah, because you know what you're working. Yes, sir.
I always have a hard time figuring out what numbers they want to see sometimes, you know. 'Cause we have all this data and we have all these statistics, and you know, for our team, we always like certain things, to see things, but I always find it difficult trying to figure out what certain management wants to see, what do they care about, you know. Sometimes they don't care about what I care about, you know, so.
Right.
It's
So
tough.
what do you do?
You just ask them.
I ask, and sometimes they don't, but sometimes they don't know the data I have, so it's hard
Yeah.
to, you know, so we struggle with that. And you know, sometimes I pull up charts and they're just like, sometimes they don't care, and it's like, okay, let's try something else. But it's interesting.
Yeah.
I got all this data, I want to do something with it, right?
Yes.
I want to show you something.
I've collected all this. I've been asked to collect
All my
this.
par charts and data.
Yeah, and I don't want to say that, but yeah, it's hard to figure out what's, you know,
So,
without doing that.
Yeah, so I think it's good. I think it's probably not, the question is probably not what data do you want to see,
No.
what problem do you have?
What is your goal
Yeah.
for your department?
Yeah.
What are you seeing that's hindering you from getting to that goal? And usually from there, you can extrapolate, well, you can monitor that. Here's a metric, or that sort of thing, since you're
Yeah.
data-centric.
Yeah.
A lot of people.
Or what else they say in our environment is, don't report the news, make the news.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, for what data to put up there, I love speaker notes. I will always have a carrot, an acorn, whatever you want to call it, right? I will put a number up on the screen. Maybe it's not the number they want, but in the conversation, they may ask about something, and I will have that in my speaker notes. I'll be prepared with that data. Even if I don't have the right number on the screen, I will have it in the presentation and be able to answer the question.
That's kind of a 2 questions deep application, isn't it?
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good, that's good. Any other notable crash and burns? I have so many, I'd be here all day.
I like your time,
Time box?
time box. I have had dashboards, I have had presentations, and then they just want to come in, we have 5 minutes, we have 15 minutes. And sometimes they say we have 5 minutes, but they just want to have a conversation rather than look at the slides.
Right,
So I have done both,
That's
and
great.
it's definitely, now for me, it's more, how do I over-prepare to have it ready, but don't lead with it. Don't say, I'm just gonna pull it up, because then they shut down. I've seen that happen, so.
I'd piggyback off of that. There's so many times where you have to know, are you having a conversation with engineers that might be more inductive than deductive, or are you going into a conversation where you're helping your team of engineers sell upstream to their executive leadership and build consensus across both groups, because what will make the engineering team happy is much different than
correct.
what the executive team is going to care about. So I think knowing that I'd never heard of Bluff before, but I really like it because the bottom line for that team is going to be completely different than what the CFO, CIO, CTO, CEOs, and even those archetypes are going to be different. So I think knowing who's more inductive, tell me why first before, you know, they like a certain version of, no one likes the magic trick at the end, but some people like more.
People love that, they want to have that big reveal. I tell you, I just go, you know, like you're in a Vegas show.
Yeah, I'm more inductive, so I like to start with.
Yeah.
So your wall of text, the opposite of that, and I sat through it twice yesterday for about 2.5 hours total. Unreadable text on a background.
Yeah,
Unbelievable. So a
Oh,
yellow
well, that's-
background with white text.
that's also
Blue
the,
background with white text. Like, I can't read your slide, and so.
yeah, that's also, yeah, in Kawasaki's thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
Don't get too crazy, don't get too creative, spend less time screwing around with the colors and more time.
You gotta
figuring out
talk
the-
to Mike to have you consult back to
Yeah,
Blue Cross
please.
real quick and talk to the managers.
Yeah, I know, I have, I mean, I've talked to my team, you know, they know, I've shown them this, and they know, don't come in here and don't know these things, I'm gonna skewer you, you know, because
That's
you
awesome.
gotta learn somehow. One thing on the time boxer message, I remember this was a director, I think, in Hollywood, who said, if your idea for your movie will not fit on the back of a business card, you haven't thought about it enough. So, and I always like that. I was like, gosh, what is it? What fits on the back of a business card? And, you know, and that makes you really kind of, you know, condense down your thought to this is it. And there's tons more. I mean, you gotta, well, you know, the people, well, then what happens? Then what happens? So that's different. That's later. So, yes.
So on that note, if you like TED Talks, 99% Invisible with Roman Mars.
Okay.
He's got this great TED Talk about city flags.
Huh.
It is amazing from a graphics design perspective. When you get into it, you're gonna, this is awesome.
All right,
Remember,
I'll
your
check that
city
one out.
flag has to be like a postage stamp size when
Right.
it's viewed 100 feet away.
Interesting.
So don't put 8.5.
Yeah, 8.5. Exactly.
Brett,
Alright,
this
yes, sir.
framework, I could see, you know, if your boss is horrible at presenting,
Yeah.
I actually think bringing this framework to your boss and telling them what you learned today about, or what you learned at the last IT leaders about presenting and being effective, showing them point by point. These are 9 points that are all have deep meaning.
Yeah. I mean, each one of these could be a 30-minute conversation, you know, with examples and things like that. It's a great idea. And it's also a way to gauge how do they communicate. I think you'll find most leaders relate to this. I've never met somebody who says, no, I want to wait to the end to hear what you're talking about. No, you know, I've never heard that. I've never heard somebody say, oh, yeah, no, you can talk for an hour, even though we only told you 10 minutes. It doesn't happen. So, you know, that's a great idea, though, and see what resonates with them. And obviously, that's probably one of your areas of influence that should be solid. You got to have that one. If you don't have that one, it's going to be hard to, you know, build on. Yeah.
Yeah, this could be not just in presentations though. This is in all your conversations that you have with your higher ups and actually with your individual contributors, those that report to you,
Right.
or even your peers. Because as we know from previous, every opportunity is you have to speak to someone is a chance to change the culture.
No, that's spot on. So when I do performance reviews, as much as I dislike even the concept of performance reviews, but there's entities I work for, you got to do them. And you know, somewhere in there's a number, right? You're a 4.2 or whatever the heck it is, right? So whenever I start those, I don't say anything other. I'm going to start with the bottom. I show them they're a 4.2, and they may have thought they were a 4.5, or maybe they thought they should have been a 3.6, but now they've got some time to. They're going, okay, I know where I'm going, and it's not go at the end. And they after you've talked, they think, oh, I'm a 5.0, and you tell them you're a 3.6. So it's a super simple concept, and most leaders I know are very uncomfortable. They don't like doing performance reviews, and they go, oh, I'm going to just kind of hide that to the end, and then we can go, okay, and I got to go, you know, hang up. So, anyways, that's a great point. So when you have, particularly if you have unpleasant news, bluff. Start with that. Just get it out there, and then then start to have the conversation.
Can I suggest a different acronym for BLOCK?
Sure.
BLOCK.
Huh? Block?
BLOCK. Bottom line on top.
Oh, okay.
And it works for your email because you put it at the top of the message.
Yeah.
Right? Lead with it. So why am I doing this? What am I after? Why and why? And then you don't really need the rest of the email.
So Eric, I have a sister talk to this, which is how not to use email, and it's exactly, you're exactly right. People where you're reading down the fourth page, you're like, what is it? What is it? You know.
What is your ask?
See below.
Because
Well,
the
so
other
put your
acronyms
ask on
that
the
the too
top.
long didn't read.
Yeah.
Right, and
Yeah.
so, yeah, just,
Yeah.
you
That's-
don't have to do
that-
something and read if you.
That fits in here on the written side. This is verbal communication, but you're spot on. There's a whole neighborhood over there on written communication. Yes, sir.
You've touched on it a couple of times, and I have to be careful about the terminology that I use to explain this, but being able to take a situation that's difficult, which most of us being technical are involved in, and dumbing it down. And that's where we need to be careful with saying dumb it down, but taking something difficult and making it simple. Because I find that when I first started out doing this, when I would speak to my leadership team, that their eyes would kind of glaze over
Yep.
instantly as soon as I started speaking. But I've gotten pretty good at making it something that they can understand and
Right.
relate to.
That's a great example. That's making sure you have this instead of talking about, some technical thing that people just go, what are we talking about? And if you say, well, that's gonna help, it's gonna make sure we have less chance of being hacked and this solves this problem and all that, it's like, oh, okay, then I'm good. Yeah, that's a great point. Okay, yes, sir.
So the one I don't see up there, except maybe it fits into your so what, who cares, is with them.
Yeah,
What's in it for me?
What's that for?
Yeah, that's in my change management track. No, but you're right, I'm joking. What's in it for me is definitely everybody's favorite radio station. And it's when you want to have people embrace change, then that's what you have to make sure it's personal. And why do they care? Why do they care? This is who cares. That's kind of what's in it for me. But it's a standalone concept. And again, when you do your circle the wagons, you find out what's their interest. What do they care about? And then you can tailor your message to make sure you include their concern or at least address it, put it out there. So no, that's a good one too.
Do you present on change management? And if so, where can we hear that?
I've done a lot of change management. I love talking about change management and kind of going beyond ADCAR. I mean, I've done that, all the ProSci stuff. Been through some big change. I have my change curve with the Valley of Tears and all that kind of stuff. And somebody said, who was talking about when you've over communicated? Yeah. Or did you say that? So I was doing a change for, this is just a little sidebar, but I was doing a pretty big change. We were taking two ERPs and consolidating, and they were very different, and somebody was going to get a big change. And I walked into this office, and they said, we know. You're coming here to tell us we're going to change this thing. I said, yep. They said, they have posters above the urinals. I said, well, there you go. It seems to be working, doesn't it? And they're like, okay, you don't have to tell us anymore. I said, okay, then I know we're getting close. So, but yes, I can talk about change management till I'm blue in the face. I like change management. It's also an underrated skill.
I have one thing to add that's very common in IT, and that is if you sound bored with your presentation, you can bet that everyone else is too.
Right.
So if you're not excited about it, and I actually think reversing your effort, that bottom line up front, actually helps solve that problem to a degree. Right? I mean, hit them with a punchline up front, and it can be very meaningful. Steve Jobs actually taught about the magic trick. He was a big believer in that one more thing thing at the end.
I know.
And I just, none of us are Steve Jobs.
No, he's a showman,
Yeah, so I just don't think it's very meaningful in most presentations, but listen to yourself. If you sound bored or you are bored with your presentation, you might want to start in a different place or start again.
I mean, I always look around the room, and I know this seems kind of obvious, but if you have a lot of people doing this, they're not listening to you. Something is wrong. And it's, unless we've just had a national alert that, Washington got bombed or something, they're just looking at Facebook or they're reading their emails or whatever, but they're not listening to you. So look around, and if you got to do something, you can still recover from that. That may be a time to engage the audience, ask a question, or say, hey, what do you all think? Is this useful? Something to get people to look up and go, oh yeah, or no, it's not. And so it's a great point. You got to make sure that they're engaged along the way. That's a way to see how these things are working. Is look at the room, look around the room, and if you see a lot of people on their phones, you can kind of start to go, uh-oh, I know where this is going. You know, kind of a little foreshadowing. Okay. Anything else? Any other questions or comments or things that you liked, didn't like? Other things I should add? I might put with them on there.
Thank you, Bret.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all for coming today. We will keep you informed on if the venue changes for the next meeting. That's in August, I believe, the next one coming up. Tell your friends about this. If you find this valuable, continue coming so that you can work on your own leadership journey and you can be the best leader that you can be. But this room is better, so I'm gonna make sure I know what my ask is, and my ask is tell other people so we can grow this meeting and it can be the best meeting they can be. Please.
Can we get a picture from us from the front?
Picture of all of us? You bet. Let's do that. Yeah, that'd be great.
On my LinkedIn, so.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. We can have Benji take it. Thank you all for being here. Have a great day.